tell me a little bit about where you come from.
I came from a small town in northern Alberta called McLennan, and being a full-blooded Cree Indian, our band was the Whitefish Lake Band, also located in northern Alberta.
Tell me a little bit about where you grew up. Talk about what that was like for you.
Yeah, where we grew up was on the south side of McLennan, where no one had the electricity, or actually a few people did have electricity, but no running water. And that was the case for us. We grew up in a small 2-room log house, which most people in our area, being native, had the same facilities. So, and every family seemed to have like multiple family members, which we did, and other siblings were parted out to members of other families or friends to for their housing.
Oh, it's really interesting. Oh, you said that during a period of time in the early 1940s, you experienced some poverty. Do you want to just talk a little bit?
Yeah, there was a lot of poverty because with limited employment in our area, not just our town, but the northern Alberta area, a lot of people were without jobs, including my dad. But he hunted lots, and he had a team of horses, which was like owning a Cadillac at that time. So, and like every family grew up poor. We had an advantage because my mother planted a garden, potatoes, carrots, and such, and we ate well. But clothing wasn't always in abundance with everyone. Everybody wore patches. It was, it was like today's kids wearing no patches but open knees, $100 pants or whatever they cost. But yeah, everybody grew up poor, and it was a way of life.
What do you remember most about that time in your life that really stands out for you?
Well, mostly that for myself, until I went to school, I was hardly ever let out of the yard. So I played with my older brother at times when he was home, because he was a couple of years older than me, and he was already in grade 2, and I was to go to school the following fall. So anyhow, we had no toys that we could call toys. We made our own makeshift toys. We cut out our own guns out of boards, and our hockey sticks were nailed together with pieces of wood. We used horse droppings for our pucks, which were in abundance because my dad had a team of horses and a big pile of pucks that we could use. Yeah. Our town was, at its peak, a population was 1,500 people. That was in the early 1940s. And we had steam engines and a lot of rail tracks in our town, which was put to good use when the U.S. Army came into our town, which doubled the population to store their equipment and their personnel that were going to be used to build the Alaska Highway. And that caused a lot of unease in our town. Like probably a third of the 1,500 were of African American people, which were not a common sight. And actually, a lot of there was a lot of housing that instantly come up overnight, like how would you say, like dormitories and two-level housing projects, to store all these people. And actually, there were some ladies from Edmonton that came along for to help out these soldiers in their time of need, and even some of the local girls helped out in that department too. So.
I love what you're saying that with a smile. Okay.
Yeah. So I was told.
Yeah, so you're told. I got you.
By reliable sources.
When that happened, did you find that there was a shift in your community? Did people integrate with each other?
Not really. Like there was like two parts of our town, north side and south side. The Caucasian people lived on the north side, where they had running water and the electricity, which was later to come to our part of town, like years and years after. But we lived in, with that aspect of life. We had plenty of wood that Dad and I got out of the bush, and hay for the horses. Like that was later years when I was in school and big enough to help him do those projects. That was my job with him. So, but yeah, it was a good period of time in my life. I had no regrets of doing that with him, for him, because I'm family. You're supposed to do that, right? That was my upbringing, to help.
What did you learn when you were younger from the elders in your life?
I didn't. My parents were the only elders I basically knew, and a couple aunts that I've seldom seen, and an uncle that was hardly seen because he was in the bar most of the time. That growing up, but my grandfather was a big support to our for family values, right? Whenever she had extra, she gave to us, and vice versa. So, and but it was like I say, basically everybody that was within our group helped each other out. So,
someone trying to come in here? No. I'm loving this, by the way. Brothers. Okay. When it came to your family dynamics, how big was your family?
Our family consisted of 7 boys and 3 girls. And I had one brother older, one brother younger than me by a year, and they both passed to illness at an early age, because like our family and other families that lost siblings because of bad health, or they lived too far away, they couldn't get in to see the doctor, and without they just lived out in the bush without horses or a team to come into town. There's very few people that had horses, and like I say, it was like owning everything when you had a team of horses back in the day. They were useful for people that wanted to move. They got somebody that had horses, they would move them or bring wood to them. Little things that helped for their survival. Like I said, my mother had a garden, which she utilized for our meals. She cooked on a wood stove, and she made excellent bannock bread that I haven't seen duplicated yet by anyone that I've eaten their products. I tried to make bannock as she could, but I never could. Close, but not. Your mom's cooking's always the best, right? So, but yeah, and when my dad decided, he was already retired then, and not retired because he was like in his 60s, but there was no like early retirement. He did go back to work until he was 70, but when he later got a job at the town, which I'll mention later. But when he grew up in the bush, he lived in the bush with his team of horses, and that's where he met my mother. She was from Whitefish Lake, he was from Greward, but somehow in between there they met, and they were married over 65 years, which I never came close to that. 50 years short. But anyhow, Dad would always had an inkling to go out in the bush, and me, I got other brothers, but he always got me to go with him because we hardly talked, and if it was talk, he would just say, "Well, go get some wood and Cree," right? So anyhow, we got along good, but I was there just to help, right? I don't know, not for anything else, I don't think, because he did everything. But I always remember that because every time we would go out, Mom always packed a lot of bannock and bacon, right? There was that, because bacon doesn't go bad. And basically that was our main staple, because I knew that when the frying pan, the cast iron frying pan was sizzling over the fire, you could smell the bacon shortly after, and I knew the bannock was coming with that. But I think we just went out there to eat a lot of times, but he wanted to be out in the bush because that's where he grew up, right? And he always brought a big supply of food. We didn't hunt much, just sat around the campfire.
I was going to ask, what were some of the things that you did out in the bush with him?
What I did was when I was old enough to do heavier and manly chores. I wasn't that old, but we went out. He would cut poplar trees down with his axe and saw them into length, and we would pile them. And this was in late spring. We would pick them up in the fall after they cured, dried up a bit, and we had our neighbor cut them into stove-sized length. That was our winter supply of wood until winter and spring. So, and our neighbor had a saw, like a band saw, like he could do this for us, gas operated. So, and it was like the saw blade was like about 4 feet in diameter, like where it ran continuously. All you did was hit the brake to slow it down, and then move the log over another chunk, and I would throw it in the pile. And when for this service, my dad used to cut hay for his horses. He had a team. He was older than my dad, but and he couldn't do that because my dad owned like the rake and the cutting tool to cut grass with. I don't even know what it's called anymore, but it was like a long time ago. Yeah. But anyhow, and summer holidays consisted of me helping them make hay for the horses. We had 2 big, huge stacks, mounds of hay, which was another year's supply for the horses, which was he always cared for his horses big time. And my job, along with my older brother, was to clean up the stalls, right? And it was like on the other side of the barn, so, and our outhouse was there, so you got 2 variations of aroma when you did one or the other, right? So, bonus.
Tell me about the time when you were sent to school.
I had to be pulled to school by my mother because I didn't want to go. My English vocabulary was limited because I only got to talk to my brother once in a while because he was out playing with his friends all the time since he started school. He was already in grade 2. And I wasn't allowed to like go visit other kids. I was allowed to stay in our yard because for whatever reason, I don't know. And my parents only taught Cree, which, I naturally picked up at a young age because that's all I heard, right? So I could speak and understand it fluently today, which is a bonus. And my not teaching my children to talk it, and was my mistake. So, and because I didn't spend that much time in their lives because of divorce later in my life. So, but yeah, it was hard to learn, like the first year. But after like a month of school, I couldn't wait to go to school. I left like an hour and a half early just to go play with friends that always went to school early to play in the playgrounds because there's new swings and monkey bars and stuff that we never seen before. So, but it was the same. Like we grew up in poverty, so did a lot of the kids that lived on the north side of town, right, with their families. So.
And did your whole family speak Cree?
Every one of us spoke Cree. Every one of us, and my brother I've asked him, how do you say this word, and that I had trouble saying. Like, he'd just like bang off the top of his head, he would say it. Like, there's some words I had hard time saying. So, and he always, my oldest brother was probably 25 years older than I was. So that was the gap between me and my oldest. The first schoolhouse I went to had grade 1s and 2 in the same classroom, grades 3 and 4 in the same classroom. We had electricity, but no running water. So with no running water came outside toilets, which were, in the same building as the school, but phew, had doors on it, which was, difficult times. But anyhow, yeah, it was in later grades that we moved to another school, which had the proper facilities in it, which was welcomed, and that was the way our school system was. And we made up our own games during recess. Like there's like probably about 6 grades that were playing ball or football, or everybody joined in, but that was what we did. But on weekends, every kid, like from just about every kid on the south side, had ball games going in different fields. And when I went through my hometown there a couple of weeks ago, I went to mom and dad's grave site and my wife's site in High Prairie. I drove around where I grew up and look at the fields that, like they used to be just patted down with kids playing on it. Now there's not even nothing, not a blade of grass disturbed. And I said, what do they do for fun? Like we didn't, I know what they do for fun. They have their games, their TV, their iPads and everything. We had nothing, so we didn't even have TVs.
Do you think that does something for children? Because I live in a place right now where I call it living in the 80s, because the kids are all outside playing with each other, and it's really amazing.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's living in the 50s like we did. So. Yeah, but yeah, they have, you have a different view of like looking at my kids, how they grew up compared to how I grew up, like almost 30 years earlier, and playing with what we had, what was available, which was limited. And with them today, they have everything. They had bicycles. My brother and I, remember, owned one bike each when we were growing up, which was a bonus because a lot of kids didn't have a bike. So, and that was because my dad, as I mentioned, I'll mention later, that he had a new job and he had this extra money where he could do things that he couldn't do before. So, yeah. Later, probably when I was in grade 5, my dad was given a job by the town of McLennan, which he was to deliver water to the south side by his a water tank that he was given and pulled by a sleigh during the winter months, and to pick up the town garbage on both sides of the tracks, which I helped him whenever I could. Weekends we picked up garbage on both sides, so it took about a day and a half for that project. We took the dump, unloaded it with shovels, and that's he was glad to get the job because he wasn't paid that much, but at least it was a lot of extra income that come into the house, which meant that a lot of our breakfasts were bacon and eggs as opposed to puffed wheat and powdered milk during the lean years. So, which was common staple for everyone. So, and we didn't know any better. We didn't know that we were supposed to eat good. We were just given eat what we were given, what was put out. A lot of wild meat. I love wild meat.
What kind of wild meat did your family hunt?
We Dad always had a lot of moose meat. He never liked deer much, but he preferred moose. And in later years, when I had my own truck, I would take him out hunting. And I think he was about 80 years old or close to it. I was trying to figure out the time that he shot his last 2 moose. I was with him in a truck, and he had an old 30-30 he bought when he was in his 20s. And he shot those 2 moose probably at about 150 yards. And there was another hunting family behind us in another truck, and Dad gave them 1 moose, and we kept 1 moose. So, because they've never had a history of killing anything on their own. So, that Dad was nice that way. He always shared.
That's really cool.
Sorry. Oh, okay. After Dad got this new job, we moved into another house, which was a a 4-room log house, 2 bedrooms, living room and kitchen, and a large porch. And with his new accommodations, Mom still had her wood stove, which a little later, when Dad bought her a gas stove, her cooking, I guess without having to use wood, didn't improve, but not as good as the wood stove. But we had a gas heater in the living room, which she didn't have to stay up all hours of the night to keep us warm like she did at the other place. So it was a bonus for her. And when we, like I say, they would make moose hide. Dad and her would make moose hide and do all the steps to it, and then she would make moccasins and mucklucks. That brought a lot of extra money into the house, which in turn had us wear newer clothing instead of hand-me-downs all the time. So, which was nice. It was nice change for her and nice change for us.
You must have felt
But
different.
We still had the outside toilet though. That never improved.
Talk to me a little bit about what it was like for you in grade 6.
Okay, in grade 6, we moved to the high school building, which was a modern building. It had all the facilities and the gymnasium. And what my biggest memory of grade 6 was this play that we were in, and each class member had a line or two to say for the play. And anyhow, we studied our lines, and everybody knew their lines without having to, cheat or write it on their arm or anything. So anyhow, we were ready for this concert that was getting played. And I remember I had to borrow a suit jacket and a tie and I think a shirt, because I think I had the pants, the suit pants. But it was the same for other people. Everybody scrambling to dress nice. It was mandatory that we had to dress this way. So anyhow, during the play, I noticed about in the third row, my mother is sitting there listening to this play, right? And she left to see her leave after our part was done, our grade was done. And what I remember mostly about that was because it was winter time, and she walked all the distance, like it was a half a mile to our school from home. So, and she had to go across tracks and maybe under boxcars, or unless she walked around to the crossing, which would have been further. But yeah, she came there just to give me support, right? She didn't have to come listen to my 1-line, 2-line play, but she did. So that was my mom. Always gave her support.
That's so nice. Okay, so then you leapfrog into 12th year of marriage.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you said, I'm glad she's lived long enough to see her 2 granddaughters and grandsons.
Yeah. When I was in my 12th year of marriage. It was 1985. And my wife, being young, married at 18, and wanted to, I guess, how would you say, test the greener grass, how things were on the other side of the fence. So we were sort of on our way out. She had moved to Fairview. She left the trailer I had bought probably about 6 years prior to that. And I was working at Fort McMurray at the time. I had a good job for a native company at Syncrude, which I ended up being his general foreman, and he gave me a Chevy Trailblazer for like a bonus. And prior to buying that trailer, we lived in an apartment building in McLennan that burned down on Christmas Eve, and we lost everything, pretty much everything, like personal mementos and things like that. All my hockey trophies burnt up. And my boss, native man from Whitecourt area, he gave me $6,000 to buy, make a down payment on something. So the trailer, that's when the trailer was bought. So anyhow, we lived in there, but when she, like say, wanted to test the water, she moved to Fairview. and left me with the trailer. And I phoned the trailer company where I had the mortgage with, and I told them, I says, I'm not going to be living here anymore, but I'm going to sell whatever's in here. She says, go ahead, you made a big enough down payment to do that. So I did. I sold some furniture, and I think that was about all I sold out of that house. And I left the stove and fridge. But thinking, if not thinking, I should have just got my parents to take it over. And about 2.5 years, they would have owned it, right? Mm-hmm. And they would have been living on the north side with running water and all the facilities and everything, close to town, walking distance, 2 blocks to Main Street. But yeah, that was something I regret not doing for them. Because I was more concerned about trying to reconciliate, and it didn't work out until later years. So. Hey, should we go for lunch?
Yeah. Do you want to go for lunch? Yeah.
Yeah. When before, like I was saying earlier, where my spouse and I were going through a breakup, which was eventually led to a divorce, but before that period, I went to McLennan to care for my parents. They were in their 80s already, and living in that house without inside washroom. They had the electricity and the gas, and so their heating was fine, but they had to walk into town, which probably had to crawl under boxcars to get through to the town, and to do their shopping and mail and laundry. So when I went to see them, and I was looking forward to the difficulty that they were going to have for this period of time, I told myself I'm going to stay with them and look after them for the winter. And it was probably about a month later that my wife phoned me and asked me if I was coming home. I said, no, I'm going to stay with Mom and Dad and look after them. She said, fine, and that's what led to my divorce down the road. So she experienced what she was looking for. So is the grass greener on the other side? So anyhow, I looked after my parents. I sometimes cooked, but I went for their mail. I did their shopping, and I carried the groceries home from town, which was quite a walk, which I didn't want them to do. And my long-range intention was to have them move into a nursing home, which Mom did the following summer. But Dad, being difficult, took him a few extra months because he enjoyed the bannock and the homemade pancakes I made. And when we got low on flour, he would send me, you better pick up 100 pounds. I said, Dad, you're not going to eat that much home bacon. You better get into someplace to stay warm for the winter, the next winter. So he did. So it was a while, but as getting myself divorced, which was, my marriage was on shaky grounds anyhow, I never regretted. If I'd have went back, maybe we would have, reconciled or whatever, but I never ever regretted doing that today, ever. So yeah.
And then so talk about what it was like for your mom after you talk about how your mom was always there for people in need.
Yeah, like she had clothing that was given to her or anything, then she would pass it on to needy families, right? And we had when I hunted lots, we had a big deep freeze. It was always kept full, and she would share that with other friends that she knew, and that was something that I grew up doing in my lifetime, and some of my kids are doing that too, which pleases me. That's how that was my upbringing, and it wore off onto theirs, and which is good. It's, you share and duplicate family values. That's a good step towards a healthy, good life and a good feeling about yourself. So that was good. That was about the only thing I gave my kids was good information on family values, and which they hopefully share with their siblings themselves.
Do your children have children?
My 2 daughters and 2 sons have 11 11 children, and through marriage we increased the grandchildren by 4 through marriages, so I have 15 grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren, and hopefully that's it for a while. So it's hard to keep track of things. I have to keep track on a calendar, and that's why I was looking at the calendar. Today it's August 13th, 2018. August 16th would be 4 years since I lost my spouse. August 19th, 2018 would be 45 years that I've been involved in her life, some through marriage, but I've always supported her in our separation. She never went without anything. Money, what I had, and whatever she needed, I always supplied, even though she was in other relationships. So I was always there for her. And October 19th, 2 months, a little over 2 months, I'll be 70 years old. Yay, I'm finally an elder.
Oh my God. So, Arnold, for looking back at everything that you've experienced, and this is a tough question in a lot of ways, because how can you summarize all your knowledge and all your experiences? But if you were to part some knowledge to the next generation, what would you like to say to them about what you've experienced in life?
I would say, growing up, don't make enemies, make friends. Be kind to friends or strangers. Like, it's not hard to meet somebody in need that needs a handout. You know that they need a handout. Even meet them downtown, like down on their luck. Give them a loonie, give them a toonie. Don't give them too much in case they want it for other things. But if they're serious about getting a cup of coffee or something, give them a toonie. Like, I've done that lots. I don't, today, I don't, I've made a lot of money in my lifetime. And the last 6 years of my life, I've probably made over $600,000. Today, I have nothing because my family didn't have to go through any hardships, which I had to endure. And I still maintain that commitment to myself and the commitment my parents made to me to take care of your family, your friends, and never put yourself ahead of anybody. You're all equal. And like I said in my notes, and maybe someday when you're old, you're going to have to do the same thing that I just did for these lovely ladies here. And good luck with that. God bless you.